My dad tried to strong-arm me into handing over my house to my sister, the golden child, for her kids, but I made one move that knocked the wind right out of their sails and gave them a taste of what they had coming. I'm a 32-year-old guy, and honestly, I never imagined I'd be airing this mess on Reddit, but here I am, still fuming while I type this out. Let me back up a bit and lay out how things have been. For the last decade, I've worked as a veterinary technician at one of the busiest animal clinics in the city. It's not a high-paying gig. I'd bring in about $65,000 a year, but I truly love what I do. There's just something fulfilling about nursing sick animals back to health, even if that means I'm constantly dealing with scratches, bites, and being drenched in all sorts of animal fluids on a regular basis. And nothing beats the look on a pet owner's face when you help save their furry friend. That right there? It's worth more to me than some fancy tech job pulling in six figures. But I'll tell you, saving up for a house on a vet tech's income? That's been a battle all its own. Since I was 22, I've been living like a broke college kid just trying to make homeownership a reality. I shared this cramped little apartment with 3 other guys, one of whom, I swear, was running some illegal cheese smuggling ring from his bedroom. Don't even ask, the smell still haunts me. I drove this beat-up old Honda Civic that sounded like it was trying to cough up its own engine, and I survived on the cheapest meal prep known to man. If there was a sale on ramen noodles or frozen burritos, you could bet I was there, stockpiling like the end times were near. Meanwhile, there's my sister Emily. She's 35 and man, where do I even start? Imagine every spoiled Instagram influencer you've ever seen, crank it up to 10, and throw in 3 kids from 3 different baby daddies. That's Emily in a nutshell. She's always got some lifestyle brand scheme going, basically hopping from one MLM to the next and somehow convincing our folks to buy in. Her kids are 8, 5, and 2. Sweet kids, don't get me wrong, but she uses them like props on her Instagram feed. She's constantly posting these perfectly staged pictures of them in coordinated designer outfits, with captions like, "Blessed Mama raising my tribe," while in reality, she's dropping them off with our parents so she can hit up what she calls business meetings. Translation, margaritas with other MLM moms. And get this, she hasn't held a steady job since she walked out on her hostess gig at Applebee's back in high school. Her reason? The uniform clashed with her aesthetic. Yet somehow, she's always sporting the latest iPhone, dripping in designer handbags, and taking all expense paid, business, getaways to Cancun. How? 2 words, our parents, mostly Dad. The way Dad bends over backward for her, you'd think she was royalty and I was the neighbor's kid. When I needed new shoes growing up, I'd hear the classic, "Money doesn't grow on trees, son." But when Emily wanted a brand new MacBook just because her current one was a year old, boom, Dad's credit card appeared like magic. Daddy's little princess strikes again. I did my best not to let it get under my skin. I had my own path, was doing things my own way. Yeah, living with roommates well into my late 20s wasn't ideal, especially while Emily enjoyed the luxury of our parents' guest house, rent-free. But I had one goal, buy my own place. While she was throwing money at sketchy crypto startups her boyfriends swore were the next big thing, I was studying up on mortgages, property taxes, and what it takes to keep a home running. After nearly a decade of sacrificing and hustling, pulling overtime shifts and living like a monk, I finally made it happen. I found this modest little 3-bedroom ranch in a solid neighborhood. It wasn't fancy and definitely needed some TLC. The bathroom had carpet, yeah, seriously, carpet, and the kitchen walls were painted some kind of neon orange that burned your eyes. The previous owner had some bold taste, to say the least. But it was affordable, the bones were good, and best of all, it was mine. The day I got those keys, I sat on the floor in the middle of my empty living room and just broke down. I cried. Might sound silly, but after watching Emily coast through life getting everything handed to her while I busted my butt for every little thing, that moment felt like my own personal victory. Proof that taking the long road and doing it right actually meant something. But speaking of Emily getting handed things, this is where the real story takes a wild turn. About 5 years ago, our folks gifted her a house. And not just some average place, a stunning 4-bedroom home in one of the ritziest neighborhoods around. You know, the kind where every yard has one of those protected by security system signs and Teslas line the driveways. That house had to be worth twice what I paid for mine. Wanna guess how long she managed to hold on to it? Less than a year. She sweet-talked Dad into believing it was a smart move to sell the place and put the money into her newest business venture, which, at the time, was this bizarre mix of juice cleanses and a music production startup for her then-boyfriend. Spoiler alert, he vanished the second the money hit his account. Now she's back in the guest house like nothing happened, mooching off our parents again while they foot the bill for everything, from her kids' fancy private schools to her monthly self-care, spa appointments. But me? I was focused on fixing up my place, taking it one room at a time. I ripped up that nasty carpet in the bathroom, seriously, why would anyone do that? Repainted the eye-burning kitchen, and even set up a decent little home office. Life felt like it was finally falling into place. Until last month. That's when it all hit the fan. It was a Tuesday, and I had just survived one of the toughest shifts of my life. I'd helped out with 3 emergency surgeries back to back, including this poor German shepherd who'd swallowed half a toy store, Legos, Hot Wheels, you name it. By the time I walked through my front door, I was running on nothing but caffeine and sheer determination. I dropped onto my old, beat-up but unbelievably comfy couch, scored it from a garage sale, and just started to breathe again when my phone rang. It was Dad. Now normally, a call from him wouldn't raise any alarms. But something about it didn't feel right. Maybe it was how he was trying just a little too hard to sound casual, or maybe it was just my overworked brain picking up on something off. But my gut was yelling at me that this wasn't just a drop-by visit. Hey son, you home? Mind if I stop by for a bit? Need to discuss something with you. Yeah, I should have trusted my gut right then. 20 minutes later, not one, but 2 cars rolled into my driveway. I looked out the window and there was Dad climbing out of his Mercedes, the one he claims is for the family. Though funny enough, Emily's the only one who ever drives it. Then, stepping out of a brand new white Range Rover, also probably bought with Dad's money, came Emily, wobbling on these fire engine red Louboutins that definitely cost more than what I spend on groceries in 3 months. Honestly, I should have just locked the door and pretended I wasn't home. But instead, I opened it, and in they walked, like they owned the place. Emily immediately started scanning the room like she was judging some budget motel. Ugh, this furniture is so basic, she sneered. Yeah, because, you know, some of us buy furniture with money we earned. These walls need to be white for my aesthetic, she added, wrinkling her nose. They're beige. Close enough. But she wasn't done. This would be such a cute space for Micah's TikTok studio. Micah is 8. He doesn't need a TikTok studio. He needs a bedtime and a library card. We sat down in the living room, while I sat. Emily sprawled across my armchair like she was posing for some influencer brand deal, still randomly filming everything on her phone. Dad cleared his throat, let out this weird half-chuckle, and dropped the bomb. So, son, your sister's been going through a rough patch lately. Emily cut in like she was on cue. OMG, Dad, don't make it sound so depressing. I'm just, pivoting my business model. Then she turned to me, plastering on this fake warm expression like I was one of her followers. My meditation crystal business didn't align with my authentic self, you know? I sat there thinking about the 20 grand Dad sunk into that exact business just 3 months ago. But I bit my tongue. Dad continued. Well, we've been talking, and this house, it's really too big for just one person. Emily's got 3 growing kids. They need space. Stability. Then came the kicker. We think you should give Emily your house. At first, I thought I must have been hallucinating from sleep deprivation. Maybe I'd passed out at work, and this was some bizarre fever dream brought on by caffeine and stress. Wait, what? I asked. Emily rolled her eyes so hard I swear I heard them creak. Oh my God, don't be so dramatic. It's not like you're using all this space. I need a proper area for my content creation. The lighting in the guest house is killing my engagement. I looked at Dad, waiting for him to crack a grin, maybe say it was a joke. But he had that look. That same tired look he always wore whenever Emily wanted something, the just give and so we don't have to deal with her tantrum expression. You can't be serious, I said flatly. Dad leaned forward, putting on his calm, business guy voice. We've thought this through. You're young, single, focused on your career. You could easily find an apartment closer to the hospital. Emily needs a stable home for the children. Stability? I nearly choked. You mean like the other house you gave her? The one she sold to fund Logan's mixtape? Emily's head popped up like I'd insulted her whole brand. That was different. Logan's mixtape was gonna blow up. How was I supposed to know he'd run off to Miami with that SoundCloud rapper? Dad raised his hands in his usual calming gesture, which only made my blood boil. The past is the past. This is about family. About helping your sister get back on her feet. Back on her feet? I laughed, but there wasn't a drop of humor in it. She's never even stood on her own. You've carried her through every bad decision she's ever made. Emily gasped like I just insulted the Pope. I am a boss babe running multiple businesses. Pyramid schemes aren't businesses, Emily. That's when Dad played his final card, the one he figured would shut me up. Son, if you don't help your sister out here, well, you might want to reconsider your position in the will. Silence. Not a single sound. Even Emily paused her recording. And that's when something in me snapped. After years of biting my tongue, swallowing my pride, and watching Emily be spoon-fed every opportunity one had to claw for, I was done. I stood up and walked to my home office. Ignored Emily muttering, "OMG, so rude," and came back with a thick folder. I'd been compiling it since the day she sold that first house. Because somewhere deep down, I knew this moment would eventually show up on my doorstep. You want to talk about the will, Dad? I said, dropping the folder onto the coffee table with a satisfying thud. Fine. Let's talk about it. Here's some quick context on the folder. The day Emily sold her house, something clicked. Maybe it's from working so long with animals, seeing how little things turn into massive problems when you ignore them. I started keeping records, every receipt, every text, every braggy social media post where she talked about her businesses. Paranoid? Maybe. But instincts are instincts. I opened it up, flipped to the first page. The house in Oakwood Heights. The one you gave Emily. Let's see what it was worth when she sold it. Emily rolled her eyes again. Oh my God, are you still bitter? That was forever ago. I'm trying to manifest abundance right now and your negativity is blocking my chakras. I ignored her. According to property records, it was valued at $875,000 when you signed it over to her. She sold it for $890,000. And where'd that money go? Dad looked uncomfortable. Emily suddenly found her nails fascinating. I flipped another page. $50,000 went to Logan's music career. He ghosted her 2 weeks later. At least she got a face tattoo out of that one. More pages. $200,000 into her crystal healing empire, which lasted, 3 months before she decided crystals were out. Then $300,000 into some magnetic water scheme. Emily suddenly piped up like that made any of it reasonable. It was alkaline ionized wellness water, thank you very much. And it only failed because people weren't ready for that level of hydration consciousness. Right. That level of hydration. I kept laying out document after document, like I was peeling back the layers of a rotting onion. The rest of it? I said, waving the next page. Designer handbags, that Range Rover she couldn't afford, and God only knows what else. But here's the kicker, Dad. I paused for effect. I had a buddy in real estate run a valuation on your entire estate, your house, your investments, the works. Dad's face strained of color like someone had pulled the plug on his circulatory system. Emily kept pretending to study her nails like they held the secrets to the universe, but I saw the tension in her shoulders. Turns out, I went on, everything you own now? It's worth less than what Emily got when she sold her house. She's already burned through her inheritance, and then some. The silence in that room was suffocating. You could have sliced it with a butter knife and still hit solid resistance. Emily's fake influencer smile started to flicker, and her eye was twitching like a faulty light bulb. Dad looked one breath away from a heart attack. So go ahead, I said, leaning back into the couch with a calm I didn't really feel. Cut me out of the will. There's nothing left to cut me out of. And that's when Emily snapped. This is so unfair, she shrieked, leaping out of her seat like it was on fire. You can't just throw around numbers like they mean everything. Oh, I don't know, I shot back. What about your kids? Their future? I mocked. You mean the same kids you plaster all over Instagram for product placements? The ones you're trying to turn into little TikTok stars before they can even read a book? At least I have kids, she screamed. What do you have? A bunch of sick animals in this beige suburban nightmare of a house. Dad finally found his voice again, and he tried to reel the conversation back. Now, son, he said, slipping into his calm and reasonable tone, these numbers don't tell the full story. Your sister's ventures, they were investments in her future. No, Dad, I cut in, voice sharp. They were you enabling her to keep dodging accountability. And now that there's nothing left for you to hand her, you're trying to take my house, the only thing I've built for myself, without a cent from either of you. Emily was crying now, but it wasn't the kind of crying that comes from real pain. No, this was practiced. Manipulated. She was turning her face toward the window light, trying to catch her best angles between sniffles. You don't get it, she wailed. I need a space that reflects my brand. The guest house lighting is ruining my engagement rates. My followers expect a certain vibe. Your followers? I laughed coldly. You mean the ones you bought? Her mouth dropped open. You wouldn't. I pulled out another stack of receipts and dropped them on the coffee table. 10,000 fake followers last month alone. You really thought I wouldn't find out? Dad stood up like he was still the authority in the room. That's enough, he said, his voice sharp. This is exactly the behavior we're worried about. This isn't how family acts. You're damn right it's not. I snapped back. Family doesn't try to steal each other's homes. Family doesn't bankroll one kid's every whim while letting the other fend for himself. And they sure as hell don't threaten him with a will that's already bled dry. Emily's mascara was running, so much for waterproof. Serves her right for buying knockoff makeup from one of her own sketchy sponsors. And even through the tears, she was still trying to angle her phone like this was all content. My followers are going to hear about this, she sniffled. Just wait until I post about this toxic energy. Go ahead, I said, pulling out one final paper. But maybe read this first. I handed her a copy of the agreement she signed with Dad when he gave her the Oakwood Heights house. Remember this? The one where you agreed to use the funds responsibly? The one that makes you legally liable for fraud because you lied on your business disclosures? The phone slipped from her hand and clattered to the floor like it, too, was done with her nonsense. I stood, collected my papers, and looked them both in the eye. Now get out of my house, both of you. And if you ever try to pull this stunt again, every single one of these documents is going straight to a lawyer. They left in a huff of silence and smeared mascara. And for a minute, I honestly believed that was the end of it. I thought maybe, just maybe, that they'd finally gotten the message. But of course, I underestimated just how deep Emily's entitlement ran, and how far Dad would go to keep enabling her delusions. The next few days were quiet, at least on the surface. Emily was busy being passive-aggressive on Instagram, posting vague quotes about cutting out toxic family and vampires who drain your light. Pretty sure she meant me, but whatever. She even posted some long-winded story about how the universe sends you through struggles so you can manifest abundance. Meanwhile, she's checking into a luxury spa on Dad's dime and tagging her new designer outfit like nothing ever happened. Meanwhile, I was back at the hospital, focused on my real life, on things that actually mattered. One of my favorite patients, a sweet rescue pit bull, had just come through surgery beautifully. She's doing great now, by the way, loving her new home, wagging her tail like she's finally safe. I was just starting to breathe again. Life felt like it was settling back into place. Then came last Thursday. I was in the middle of a tricky dental procedure on a cat. Side note, feline teeth are way more complicated than you'd think, when my phone started buzzing like a wasp nest in my pocket. Non-stop. Now, I never check my phone during procedures, but something felt off. So when I finally got a break, I checked. And holy freaking hell. The first text was from Mike, my next-door neighbor. Dude, there's a moving truck in your driveway. Then another, from Karen, who, for the record, is the good kind of Karen. There are people moving furniture into your house. Everything okay? My heart sank. Then came a flood of frantic messages from both of them. Emily and Dad were at my house. With movers. With a locksmith. I called Mike with hands shaking so bad I nearly dropped the phone. Mike, what the hell is going on? Man, he said, sounding hesitant. Your sister and your dad rolled up with a U-Haul like an hour ago. Had a locksmith with them, too? Said you'd given them the house? I felt like I was going to throw up right there on the spot. I told my supervisor I had a family emergency, understatement of the year, and bolted. The whole drive home, my brain was spinning. They couldn't be doing this. Right. This had to be some kind of mistake. Nope. I pulled up to my house, and there it was, a massive U-Haul in my driveway, Emily directing some very confused-looking movers while she filmed everything for her Instagram, and Dad talking to a locksmith who was actively changing my locks. The best part? Emily's 3 kids were running around my front yard, screaming we get to pick our rooms, while she's yelling at them about ruining her Instagram live. Her youngest, who's like 2, was literally drawing on my garage door with markers while she was too busy filming to notice. I parked my car, blocking the U-Haul, no way they were getting that thing out now, and stormed up to my front door. Emily saw me and had the absolute audacity to look annoyed. Ugh, what are you doing here? You're totally ruining the surprise for my followers. I was going to do a whole home renovation series. I'm literally shaking with rage at this point. What am I doing here? This is my house. Dad stepped in, trying to act all calm and businesslike while a locksmith was literally committing a crime behind him. Now, son, we figured since you were being unreasonable, we'd help you make the right decision. You can't just leave your sister and her children homeless. Homeless? She lives in your guest house for free. Emily rolled her eyes, still filming. That's not the point. The guest house doesn't have a home theater room. Where am I supposed to film my motivational Monday videos? I pulled out my phone to call the cops, and that's when Emily showed her true colors. She grabbed my arm, still filming with her other hand of course, and said in this weirdly calm voice, "Go ahead, call them. But remember, I have 3 kids. Who do you think they'll side with? The single guy who works with animals or the poor single mom just trying to provide for her babies?" Dad nodded along like this made perfect sense. Think about how this will look, son. Just let your sister have the house. We can find you a nice apartment. I looked at the locksmith, who was looking mighty uncomfortable now. Did you verify who owned this house before changing the locks? He shifted nervously. They said it was a family property. Show him the papers. Emily shrieked, her calm facade cracking. Dad, show him how this house belongs to the family? Dad started fumbling in his briefcase, pulling out some obviously fake documents they probably printed at Kinko's, but I've got something better. I pulled up my phone, opened my files and showed the locksmith my deed, mortgage documents and property tax records, all in my name, all legally filed. The locksmith's face went white. Emily was still filming but now screaming about toxic masculinity, and how I'm oppressing her dreams. Dad was trying to talk over everyone about family obligations and doing the right thing. And that's when I did something that changed everything. I pressed dial on my phone and said the words that made Emily's fake Instagram smile disappear completely. Yes, police? I'd like to report a breaking and entering in progress. What happened next was like watching a train wreck in slow motion, but make it Instagram worthy. Emily immediately switched into full mommy influencer crisis mode. Oh my god, are you filming this? She shrieked, actually trying to position herself for better lighting while having a meltdown. This is literally abuse. I'm literally shaking right now. My followers will not believe this toxic masculinity. Meanwhile, Dad was going through the 5 stages of grief in record time. Son, think about what you're doing, he said, his voice doing that weird thing where he's trying to sound authoritative, but you could hear the panic creeping in. This is family. We can work this out. The locksmith, bless his heart, was frantically packing up his tools like he's on some kind of speedrun challenge. I don't blame him. This is probably not what he signed up for when he went to locksmith school, if that's a thing. Here's where it gets even better. Emily's oldest kid, Jaden, who's been watching too many TikToks, apparently decided this was the perfect moment to start his influencer career. This 8-year-old pulled out an iPad, probably worth more than my first car, and started doing a commentary. What's up, guys? Welcome to my channel. Today, we're watching my mom get a new house, but my uncle is being super sus right now. I wish I was making this up. The cops arrived in what felt like forever, but was probably only about 10 minutes. 2 patrol cars pulled up, and Emily immediately, and I mean immediately, switched into her poor, helpless single mother act. You know those videos of fainting goats? Yeah, it was kind of like that, but with more designer labels and fake tears. Officers, she wailed, somehow managing to find the perfect camera angle while pretending to be distraught. Thank goodness you're here. My brother is trying to keep me and my babies homeless. Look at their little faces. But here's the thing about real police officers. They're not Emily's Instagram followers, and they're not Dad's golf buddies. They don't mess around when it comes to the law. Facts matter, not feelings. Ma'am, we'll need to see some ID and proof of residence, said the first officer, calm as a pond on a still day, not even blinking at Emily's over-the-top, Oscar-worthy meltdown. I stayed steady, pulled out my phone, and started showing them everything. Property deed, mortgage statements, tax records, the whole stack. Then I handed over my driver's license with the address right there in bold. Officers, I said, keeping my voice level. These people broke into my house. Hired a locksmith while I was at work, changed the locks, and now they're moving furniture in like they own the place. Emily tried butting in with some ramble about family property and unspoken agreements, but before she could finish, the second officer shut her down. Ma'am, do you have any legal documentation showing your right to this property? Dad stepped up then, all puffed up with his printer paper pride, and handed over his so-called evidence. The officer took one look, sighed so loud it echoed, and tilted the papers sideways like he was trying to figure out a child's crayon drawing. Sir, these aren't legal documents, he said dryly. This is a PowerPoint presentation, printed on glossy stock. The shade in his voice? Legendary. I almost felt bad for Dad. Almost. The two officers exchanged a look, one of those silent, exhausted. We are too old for this. Glances, and then turned back to Emily. Ma'am, stop recording. Step outside the property. This could be classified as a criminal trespass. A crime scene? Emily shrieked, her voice jumping into a dog whistle range. This is family business. This is about my children. One officer looked over at me. Sir, do you want to press charges? Emily's expression fell faster than her last pyramid scheme. Dad jumped in then, babbling something about family reputation and golf club memberships. To be honest, the cops were pros. Calm, thorough, completely unshaken by the circus. They took everyone's statements, including from the poor locksmith who looked like he wanted to disappear into the ground. Turns out, once he figured out he'd nearly helped commit a felony, he was more than happy to cooperate. The movers too. They showed the officers a work order Emily filled out, listing my house as her investment property. Yeah, probably not smart to put lies in writing. While one officer collected info, the other started directing the removal of everything they'd hauled in. You should have seen Emily's face when they carried out that hideous pink velvet couch she's always bragging about. Her signature piece, or whatever. Meanwhile, Dad was juggling damage control, on the phone with his lawyer, who clearly wasn't picking up, trying to stop Emily from having a full meltdown, and attempting to wrangle her kids, who were treating this like some new TikTok prank. And that's when Mason, her 5-year-old, completely nuked the whole operation. This tiny kid looked right up at the cop and said, Are we going to jail like when Mommy took stuff from the mall? The officer's eyebrow practically launched into orbit. Ma'am, he said deadpan, is there something else we need to be aware of? Emily's face glitched like a phone trying to load too many filters. He's confused, she said quickly. He means I returned something once. But Mason wasn't done. You said the security man was mean because he didn't know you were famous, and Daddy had to pay the store. Mason! Emily screeched, finally dropping her phone, the first time it had left her hand all day. Go wait in the car, now! The officers exchanged another knowing look, and one stepped away to call in a background check. I caught part of it. He was asking dispatch to run her name. Dad looked like he was about to pop a blood vessel. Meanwhile, the movers kept hauling stuff out, and one of them came over to me, holding something like it was radioactive. A giant vision board, covered in screenshots of my house from old real estate listings, with Emily's empire written in glitter pen across the top. Where do you want this? He asked. Before I could answer, Emily lunged for it. That's my manifestation board. I spent hours aligning the crystals and visualizing abundance. The officer stepped in, unimpressed. Ma'am, All unauthorized items are to be removed from the premises. But I already sage cleansed the space, she whined. Then another patrol car pulled up. Turns out Mason's little truth bomb? It led them straight to an outstanding warrant for Emily. Apparently, being an influencer doesn't give you permission to walk out of Nordstrom with unpaid merchandise, even if you plan to post about it later. The moment they started reading her rights? Priceless. She even asked if she could turn slightly for better lighting in her mugshot. Dad finally sprang into action, but not to help Emily. Nope. He started scooping up all the fake documents he brought, stuffing them into his jacket like a kid trying to hide a bad report card. Sir, the officer said, eyeing him. I'm going to need to see those papers. Dad stammered. These? Oh, just some family photos, nothing important. The officer wasn't buying it. Sir? The papers. Now. As the officer started flipping through those papers, his face got more and more serious by the second. Apparently, faking property documents isn't just shady, it's an actual felony. Who'd have thought? While one officer was handling Emily's arrest warrant, and the other was digging into what I now call Dad's creative writing portfolio. The locksmith pulled me aside. The poor guy was sweating like he'd just run a marathon. Look, man, he stammered. I swear I didn't know. They said it was a family matter, showed me paperwork and everything. I should have checked. Please don't press charges. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. He was scared stiff. I could tell he wasn't trying to scam anyone, he just got caught up in their mess. So I made a call that ended up being a game changer later on. I told him I wouldn't press charges, but only on one condition. He had to give a full, honest statement about how Dad and Emily approached him, complete with the fake paperwork and the story they sold him. Well, that statement cracked the whole thing wide open. Turns out, those weren't just laughably fake documents. They had forged signatures and phony legal seals. That bumped things up from petty nonsense to full-on felony fraud. And just when I thought it couldn't get wilder, remember Mason's little mall comment? Yeah, that opened up a Pandora's box of influencer nonsense. Turns out, Emily had been running a scam on a scale I didn't even think she was capable of. She'd get sponsorships from companies, use their promo codes to order products, film glowing reviews, and then return the items for full cash refunds, keeping the money and the content. She pulled this with over 30 different companies. That's not just shady, it's straight up theft. But karma wasn't done yet. While digging into Emily's fraud, the investigators found out Dad had been embezzling from his job. All that luxury, the designer bags, private school tuition, Range Rover joyrides. Yeah, paid for with company money. He'd set up a fake consulting firm in Emily's name and was funneling money through it, writing it all off as business expenses. He'd been cooking the books for years. Once that came to light, it was like watching dominoes fall, one after another. Dad got fired immediately, and is now facing criminal charges. His company is suing him for every last cent. Emily's up to her neck in fraud charges on top of the shoplifting warrant. Now, there was one decent outcome from this mess: the kids. Emily's ex, Jaden's dad, stepped up and got full custody of all three. Turns out he's really cleaned up his act. Married now, to a child psychologist, living in a quiet suburban neighborhood. The kids are in therapy, enrolled in public school, which Emily once called a war zone. And honestly, they seem happier than I've ever seen them. As for me? Still in my house. Got the garage door fixed, goodbye marker graffiti, painted over that hideous neon pink accent wall, Emily did, and even converted the spare room into a legit home office. The neighbors joke that my place is now the most secure house on the block, what with the cops having been here more than the mailman that week. And the cherry on top? Last week, I got a letter from Emily. She's hiding out at her mom's place in Florida, trying to stay out of the spotlight. The letter was classic Emily, dramatic, self-pitying, and full of life lessons. She begged me for help with her legal bills, said she wanted to rebuild the family bond, and even offered to promote my vet clinic on her Instagram. Which, by the way, lost about 80% of its followers after her arrest. I snapped a photo of her letter, scribbled a giant NO across it in red Sharpie, and mailed it right back. She's since posted online about being in talks to play herself in some adaptation of the whole ordeal. Honestly, I doubt it's true, But at this point, I just let her keep digging. My house is paid off. My job makes me happy. And the only energy I worry about now is whether the dog knocked over my coffee. No more fake documents. No more influencer drama. And best of all, no more crystals wedged between my couch cushions. Thanks for riding along through this wild story, Reddit. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: sometimes the family that matters most isn't the one you're born into, it's the one you build for yourself. Even if they've got 4 legs and shed on your furniture.